somebody who is a great communicator and moves at top speed, only to realize that you should have slowed down and thought about what you were going to say or do? If so, you can probably relate to the Knight of Swords. Stay tuned and learn how to interpret the Knight of Swords when it shows up in a reading. Hi everybody, I'm Sue Ellen Clayton. Welcome to my channel where we are learning the tarot deck one card at a time. Today's card is the Knight of Swords. Most people find the court cards to be the most challenging part of the tarot deck, and I will do my best to demystify it here. I will be using the Rider-Waite tarot deck. You'll find a link to the deck below, as well as to the many books that I used for my research. So let's get started. If you consider the knight to be a part of the royal court, he is likely the teenager who is ready to go to college. He fits in between the impulsive pages and the mature, stable king and queen. Before we talk about this knight specifically, I want to discuss knights in general. This information is from worldhistory.org, and I have linked to it below. The knight's purpose was to win victory on a battlefield. Basically, they were the frontline army and rode in close formation. If their lance was broken, they would wield their swords and dismount if their horse was injured. The process of becoming a knight began with being a page, who were the youngest members of the royal court. Pages started training around the age of 7 by serving a local knight or members of the royal family. Their jobs included running messages, serving, cleaning clothing and weapons, and learning the basics of combat. The next step was to become a squire, which is a knight in training, and this started about the age of 14. Their jobs included learning weaponry and horsemanship, as well as taking care of a full knight. Squires would clean a knight's weapon, polish his armor, look after his horses, and help him dress for battle. They also learned skills such as hunting and falconry, and they learned about music, dance, how to speak in Latin and French, and how to have good manners. Another job of the squire was to look after the pages. As the squire got older, he learned about combat and would undergo extensive training to increase their strength and skills. Knighthood generally occurred between the ages of 18 and 21 in an elaborate ceremony. I'm not sure if this is a good comparison, but I think of the knights as being the fraternity brothers of the court. They were well educated and well off, but their testosterone levels would overpower their brains sometimes. My son was in a fraternity when he was in college, and I don't think I slept well for those entire 4 years. As you can see on the screen, knights are all on horseback. They have lots of energy and are always going places, generally considered to be a quest. They are strong, smart, and often a bit reckless. They are more mature than pages, but still have a lot of growing up to do, so they are finding their way in the world. Like teenagers, their moods can change rapidly, but they continue to move forward. One of the reasons that court cards are challenging is that they can represent 3 things. The first is a person. As I mentioned, a knight is traditionally considered to be a male in his late teens through 20s. Depending on your age, a knight could represent a romantic partner, your child or sibling, a neighbor, or someone you work with. The second thing a knight can represent is a part of yourself that is adventurous and maybe not completely in control of your emotions. And the third and final thing a court card can represent is a situation where you are moving forward in your life or you need to move forward. So a knight might be a kick in the pants that it's time to stop thinking about going back to school and actually do it. So how do you know whether this knight represents a real person, a part of yourself, or a new approach to life? First of all, go by the question. If it isn't clear, look at the surrounding cards and its position in a spread. Here's 2 other things to keep in mind when we discuss the court cards. First of all, don't give much credence to the ages, gender, or physical characteristics. For instance, a knight is traditionally considered to be a male in his late teens or 20s. Does that mean it doesn't represent your lover who is 35 years old and female? Or your adventurous grandparent who went skydiving for their 75th birthday? No, it does not. Secondly, and more important, look at the energy from this card. Your level of maturity is not based on your age, and it can vary in different areas of your life. We all know super mature people in their teens and very immature people in their 80s. You can also be mature in one area of your life, say your finances, and totally reckless in another area like your health. One of the easiest ways to understand the personality of the court cards is to understand the chart on the screen. Each member of the court card's personality is related to 2 elements. Here's a quick reminder of what each element means. Pentacles are connected to the element of earth. It's all about things in the material world, such as our bodies, homes, nature, or how we earn our living. These people are very stable. They work hard and enjoy traditions. Wands is connected to the element of fire. These people tend to be feisty, confident, enthusiastic, adventurous, extroverted, passionate, flashy, and high energy. These people make good athletes and good salespeople. Cups are connected to the element of water. This card is all about emotions. Cups people are gentle, loving, sensitive, nurturing, and feel things deeply. These people make good healers and social workers. Swords is connected to the element of air. Swords is all about communicating and expressing ourselves. This includes our thoughts about ourselves as well as our thoughts about the world around us. This encompasses intelligence, knowledge, truth, mental clarity, and our sense of right and wrong. These people make good lawyers and writers. Each of the court cards is made up of 2 elements. The first element is related to their rank. On the column down the left, you can see that all pages are related to earth. All knights are related to fire, all queens are related to water, and all kings are related to air. Each member of the court card also has a suit, and along the top of the chart you can see the 4 suits. Pentacles are related to earth, wands are related to fire, cups are related to water, and swords are related to air. As you can see on the chart, the Knight of Swords is somebody who is very fast moving. The rank of all knights connects to fire, which makes sense because they are the most hot-headed of the court cards. He is also a member of the suit of swords, which is connected to the element of air. What happens when fire and air meet? The air actually fuels the fire and makes it more intense. So the Knight of Swords is the most intense of the knights and moving the fastest. He looks like he is flying. There's nothing to slow him down. In the Knight of Swords, we see a knight riding on a gray horse. His right hand holds an outstretched sword that goes outside the frame of the card, and his left hand holds the reins. He is wearing blue and white armor. Attached to his helmet are red feathers. There is a flower shape on the lower left corner of the helmet. Over top of the armor is a sleeveless tunic with red birds. He is wearing a red scarf and cape. He is also wearing red gloves. The horse has a blue harness around his neck that is decorated with butterflies and birds. At the bottom of the card, we see 3 cypress trees that are being blown in the wind. There is a yellow hill towards the left and a smaller red hill on the right side. There are 5 birds in the upper portion of the card. The sky is light blue and cloudy. When the Knight of Swords appears in a reading, we are dealing with someone who has a lot of energy and passion and moves at top speed. It can represent a person or a part of yourself who deals with situations head on. However, they might not consider the ramifications of their actions and can be accused of having their head in the clouds. It can represent someone who is very intellectual and has great communication skills. They love learning and express themselves well. It can be a symbol that it's time for you to become more confident and speak up for what you want. Finally, the Knight of Swords can represent air travel or disappointing news, often related to some kind of delay. Let's talk about the symbolism of the Knight of Swords. We see a knight who is wearing blue and white armor that symbolizes protection. These are the same colors we see in the dress of the High Priestess, which is Major Arcana card number 2. Just as in the High Priestess, the white is about purity and the blue represents intuition. Attached to his helmet are red feathers. Once again, Pam Richards, in her book Understanding Tarot, has pointed out a detail on the helmet that I didn't notice, and that is the flower shape on the lower left corner of the helmet. She explains that it is made from 7 circles called the egg of life, which is a geometric symbol for the potential of life, representing the first stages of a cell's development. She explains that the seeds of his thoughts have grown, and while they have not hatched, he is following the path that they lead. Over the top of the armor is a sleeveless tunic with red birds. Birds in tarot represent freedom, his desire to fly, and also the element of air. Pam Richards points out that the red birds are close to his heart, which signifies that he is motivated more by his need for power than by wisdom. He is also wearing a red scarf, red cape, and red gloves. Red is the color of passion, but also the color of blood, and he is very clearly passionate about his quest. Given that he's holding a sword, I'm guessing that blood will be involved in the near future. He is riding a gray horse. Gray is normally the color of stability, but it doesn't look like the horse is too thrilled with what's going on. Gray is also the color of the storm clouds, so it may foretell that bad things will happen soon. The horse has a blue harness around his neck that contains butterflies and birds. Both live in the sky and connect with the element of air. Butterflies are a symbol of transformation, and birds generally represent freedom. Once again, I'll defer to Pam Richards, who says that the 2 birds show balanced thought, as he is not in disagreement with himself. To him, his insights are true and seen from high above the opinions and needs of others. She also points out that neither the birds or butterflies are flying, as they are not free, which represents the ideas he has already captured. His right hand holds an outstretched sword that goes outside the frame of the card, which is the same thing we saw in the Page of Swords. Since the swords represent the mind, this means that, although he might believe he knows everything, there are things that occur that are beyond his understanding. Regardless, his lack of knowledge does not stop him, and he appears eager to use the sword to deal with any threats he will face. His left hand holds the reins. The horse appears to be flying over the landscape. This is a knight that moves at lightning speed. On the bottom left side of the card, we see what Pam Richards identifies as 3 cypress trees. You can see a photo of cypress trees on the screen. I did some research, and cypress trees have a lot of significance. According to artofmourning.com, which I've linked to in the description, cypress trees are one of the oldest classical mourning symbols. It was known as the mournful tree by Greek and Romans. It would be planted by a grave or in front of a house to warn outsiders that they were entering a place corrupted by a dead body. Romans would carry branches of a cypress as a sign of respect, and bodies were placed on cypress branches before they were buried. It also represents hope as the tree points toward the heavens. So the trees, along with the storm clouds, represent sadness. We can tell that he is charging against the wind by the direction that the trees are blowing. This signifies that nothing is keeping him from his quest. He is riding over barren terrain that consists of a yellow hill towards the left and a smaller red hill towards the right. So this likely means that he is totally in his head and not grounded at all. There are 5 birds in the upper right portion of the card. This is the sign of the 5 elements, which are fire, air, water, earth, and the quintessence or spirit. The sky is light blue, but the clouds show that a storm is brewing. This can indicate cloudy thinking and also that we're not sure of the outcome of his quest. When the Knight of Swords appears in an upright position, it can represent someone or a part of yourself who is very intellectual and has great communication skills. They love learning and express themselves well. It can symbolize someone who lives in their head. These people are great at coming up with ideas, but don't generally consider the ramifications. It can represent someone who is willing to fight for their beliefs, such as an advocate or lobbyist. It can also represent someone, such as a warrior, who is constantly looking to fight as an intellectual exercise. It can represent a person who deals with a situation head-on. These people have a lot of energy, are passionate, and move at top speed. However, they might not consider the results of their actions and can be accused of having their head in the clouds. It can symbolize someone who is confident, intellectual, and considered to be an expert. On the downside, sometimes they don't have any tolerance for people who disagree with their viewpoints. It can be a message that it's time for you to become more confident and speak up for what you want. It can represent someone who is brave, daring, and takes swift action. They are forceful and assertive. However, they're prone to charging ahead without considering what will happen next, or that there might be an easier way to get where they want to go. It can indicate that there is some kind of challenge coming your way. For example, you get a speeding ticket because you were going too fast in a school zone and have decided to fight it in court. Knights of Swords are good at analyzing situations and get straight to the point. They are honest, but they can be tactless and insensitive in their delivery. It reminds me of the old joke about a doctor telling a patient they have good news and bad news. The joke goes that the bad news is that they've amputated both of the patient's legs, but the good news is that they found a buyer for his shoes. Ha ha. The element of air can be highly changeable, which is why weather forecasts aren't always accurate. On Long Island, where I live in New York, we get nor'easters and hurricanes, as well as the occasional tornado. None of these are appreciated. In this card, we see that the storm clouds are coming and that the air is already blowing at the trees, so we can assume that there are unpredictable, uncertain, and perhaps dangerous times ahead. The changing air currents can reflect people who are impulsive, change their mind easily, and are subject to burnout. Finally, the Knight of Swords can represent air travel or disappointing news, often relating to some kind of delay. Here's an example of the upright Knight of Swords, and it is about someone who I think is an amazing communicator. His name is Pete Buttigieg. Those of you who don't live in the United States may not have heard of him. He's a politician who served as the mayor of South Bend, Indiana for 8 years, starting in 2012. He is currently the United States Secretary of Transportation. But the reason for this post is that he is incredibly smart and a great communicator. You'll find a link to one of his interviews in the description so you can see what I mean. Now let's get back to him being smart. He is a graduate of Harvard and also the University of Oxford, which he attended on a Rhodes Scholarship. He was an intelligence officer in the United States Navy Reserve, where he attained the rank of lieutenant. He was also deployed in Afghanistan for 7 months in 2014. He speaks 8 languages, which are English, Norwegian, Spanish, French, Italian, Maltese, Arabic, and Dari, which is the Afghan dialect of Persia. Pete Buttigieg, who is a Democrat, has been widely criticized by the Republican Party, largely because he is gay. In 2021, when he and his husband adopted newborn twins that were extremely ill, he took 2 months paternity leave, and this made him the butt of some homophobic jokes. I am a big fan of his grace under pressure, as well as his responses that show his wit and intellect. When the Knight of Wands appears in a reverse position, it can represent someone who is a know-it-all. They think highly of themselves but haven't done anything with their lives other than try to convince themselves and others how great they are. For instance, they brag about all of their great ideas for inventions, but they've never tried to bring any of their ideas to market. It may be someone who is impatient, intolerant, and insensitive. They act without thinking, and it has negative consequences. It can represent someone who is condescending, arrogant, domineering, or a bully. It can represent someone who is weak, foolish, or unreliable. They don't take the actions that they need to. It can represent someone who is aggressive, hot-tempered, violent, cruel, abusive, or vengeful. Or someone who is irresponsible, unfocused, or focused to the point that they are obsessive. Here's an example of someone who was impatient and refused to listen to anybody else, with tragic consequences, and it is the Tenerife airport disaster, which was the deadliest accident in aviation history. It occurred on March 27, 1977. Due to a bomb that was set off at the Gran Canaria airport, many flights were diverted to Tenerife Airport in Spain. The airport quickly became congested and was not equipped to handle so many flights. To make matters worse, dense fog meant reduced visibility for the pilots and control towers. A Pan Am flight had just landed, and a KLM pilot decided to take off. He was impatient to get in the air, primarily because he didn't want his crew to exceed their flying hours, which meant that his flight would be canceled. He insisted that he had approval from the tower to take off, despite the fact that his co-pilot insisted that they did not have approval. The planes collided and 583 people lost their lives, including the captain and co-pilot. This is a great example of the Knight of Swords in the reverse position. First of all, it has to do with aviation, and the swords are all about air. Secondly, if you read about the disaster, there are many human factors involved related to misunderstandings and miscommunication. Finally, the KLM pilot, Captain Van Zanten, was highly respected and very anxious to get going. He did not listen to his co-pilot and believed he knew best. I've included links to 2 articles in the description if you'd like to learn more. Here are some questions to help you connect with the Knight of Swords. Number 1, is there something that you would like to learn? Number 2, should you improve your communication skills? How could you do this? Number 3, could you benefit from communications that get straight to the point or approaching situations head-on? Number 3, do you speak up when appropriate, or do you hide your opinions or intellect? Is this something that you'd like to change, and how would you do it? Number 4, do you consider other people's opinions, or do you feel like you always know best? Number 5, do you act without thinking? How could you make yourself slow down? And finally, number 6, are you impatient or hot-tempered? Has it gotten you into trouble? I hope that this video has helped you connect with the Knight of Swords, and please join me for the next video, which is the Queen of Swords.